So that means one thing. It is hour number 2. And I'm gonna start hour number 2 off with the return appearance of Tony Husband with a question that has to do with his documentarianness. I just created a word, documentarianness. We bring Tony in here to start hour number 2, and Tony, I got in the mail a couple days ago a notification for my my AGM for the Pompey Supporters Trust.
Excellent.
And it is apparently it's the PST AGM and Q&A event. I think they need more initials in that. But Monday, November the 10th and the 17th. The 17th, by the way, is my trust AGM. And when we had, and this is where I pull back the curtain a little bit about your documentarianness, you got to do a good documentary on how chaotic it was with Pompey when everything went and circled the toilet. It was, I'm sure it was a great piecing that jigsaw puzzle together, huh?
Yes, I mean, my goodness, John, that is taking me back a few years to a remarkable spell. I mean, I'll summarize it because the story is so complicated. I mean, if you're ever interested in kind of a tale of what was an overseas investment in a Premier League football club, and where things can go wrong, and quite frankly, how incredible the story can become, then the story of Portsmouth Football Club around that time, 2010, is one that you would enjoy and endure in many ways, because it's not necessarily a great story, but it served as a kind of litmus test moment for the Premier League in how ownership is controlled and how the game is managed in the UK, and still really is one of those original precedents for how they must never do it again. And that's actually held since the days of Portsmouth. But yes, I did a documentary about that time, the amount of owners they went through. Owners we're not even sure to this day really particularly exist or knew that they even owned the club at one point. It sent me on a journey from Portsmouth to across the UK, to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, and back again. And we produced a 30-minute documentary, which I think all of us that worked on were pretty proud of, as we tried to find the answers as to exactly what happened at that club. I mean, because they'd done everything. They'd done so well. They'd won the FA Cup. They'd spent lots of money. They had some big players like Jermaine Defoe, Sol Campbell, Kanu, you know, just their list of players was sensational. Glenn Johnson, a former England international, and then everything went wrong, and they went all the way down to the bottom of the English pyramid. And now with Michael Eisner, who has been a very good American owner for Portsmouth, they've made their way back up to Championship level, and at some point maybe we'll see Portsmouth back in the Premier League, and I would be delighted to see it.
Full disclosure, when we got the 40-page document, when Eisner was set to purchase, and you know, you have your memorandum of understanding, and hey, here's my plot, and here's my idea. You get this 40-page document, and the boss and I literally were sitting in our kitchen, and I'm poring over this thing with her, and she's like, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Michael Eisner wants to buy Portsmouth," and you know, and so we go over this thing, and I actually voted no, because there was no mention of what he was going to do with the youth programs and the academy, and how you were going to sustain growth from within with homegrown talent. That was my largest concern at the time, and I voted no. I understood everybody voting yes, but for me, I was like, well, how are you going to build for the future and all this investment? So yeah, I voted no initially, even though he has done what he has done, and I'm still a member of the PST.
Yeah, that's right. And lots of people I know did vote no. I can actually remember I was at the meeting. The media were allowed into a chunk of the meeting, as I recall, outside Portsmouth Guildhall. And Michael Eisner came on the stage and did this presentation, and he told a story just about, you know, building a company and building success and everything. And at the end of it, I'm pretty sure he plastered Walt Disney on under the screen, and because of course his connections were all with the Disney company, and I think we're then asked to leave for the section of the meeting that involved the Portsmouth Supporters Trust actually then deliberating and voting on whether they wanted to go with it. I mean, Eisner was quite clear. He didn't want to overpromise. And so by not over-promising, he was pretty blunt about what he would put in and what he wouldn't do. And I think his ownership has shown that, because this has not been some blank check to the Premier League. This has taken a long time, and they would probably admit, and I'm not close to it particularly at the moment, but they would probably admit they got a fair bit wrong on the way to getting a fair bit right. And they've still got some major issues to overcome there. If they're to become a Premier League club again for a start, they'll have to have a new stadium or a remodeled stadium. I think they're going with the latter option because it's so controversial to talk about the thought of leaving Portsmouth Fratton Park ground. So, they're a club that are often hampered in many ways by ghosts of the past as we talk on this Halloween. But we do hope that they're on the kind of the upswing. I mean, they're not having a great time at the moment in the Championship, it must be said. But it's just a bit of a football miracle, to be honest, that they're there. But never forget the role of some of the guys of the Portsmouth Supporters Trust, the Ian McInneses of this world, to name just one, who kind of just put everything on the line to save the club, and they did it, and it was a remarkable time.
Apple TV's Tony Husband not talking about the MLS Cup playoffs yet in this segment because I decided to go full right turn on us. I know you're stopped. So I guess we should actually get into the MLS Cup playoffs. You and Ross joined us last week, and Ross was from his new studio space.
Yeah,
we got to hang out there. You guys got to go to Vancouver to find out what's going on with Vancouver and FC Dallas. What were your takeaways in a dominant performance from Vancouver? It seems like ever since Thomas Müller has parachuted in, they have just been that added little bit for the Whitecaps here in the West.
Yeah, that's right. I think Vancouver have been great. I will say I thought Vancouver looked very good from the beginning of the season. I said they were one of the best teams to watch in MLS as early as March, when they started to look so good in those early rounds of CONCACAF. And then Muller has just added that extra bit of spice, not just what he's producing on the field, which is a lot, by the way, with his goals and assist tally now. I think he's now scored about 5 penalties as well. So I think he's up to something like 8-9 goals for them as well now. Almost in as many games playing as a Whitecap. And, it's just not about that, though. It's about what he's done to the market. It's incredible. He has infused everything. He's galvanized everything around Vancouver. Right now in Vancouver, they are at the moment a soccer town that is also obviously engrossed in the antics of the Blue Jays, which somebody had to explain to me that the Blue Jays are still supported in Vancouver, even though I was a bit bemused by how geographically people in Vancouver support the Toronto Blue Jays, but they do. So they tell me. Huh. So I have them down to win it. I will stick with MLS Cup winners being Vancouver. I think they're the best team in the league at the moment, and I think they've got everything going their way. They're going to be one of the best stories of 2025 if they do win it. As you said, the display over Dallas was dominant. I think they should wrap it up in Dallas tomorrow night in Game 2. Dallas did well to make the playoffs, and I think they looked a little bit like a team who thought they'd done well to make the playoffs, and that is a team that probably knows it's not going to go much further. But you never know, because this is the round now, the second game in the first round. This is where the chaos can begin. So you never know.
And we are believers and lovers and founders of the chaos. We are chaoticians here, quoting Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. You think so then let me ask this. You mentioned Vancouver, they're your favorite. I had LAFC and Vancouver in my final, but I had LAFC going through. What in your mind sets Vancouver over LAFC?
I think across the field, they're stronger. There's obviously no doubting that what LAFC have got up top in Son and Bohanga, who've obviously come together to forge a tremendous partnership. But I think that Vancouver can do more and hurt you more in more different ways. They can beat you direct. They can beat you by passing it through you. They're better on the flanks. They've got better men through the centre, potentially in attacking positions when other players can join the attack. I just like them more. I watched LAFC the other night, and again, it was a game one, and they did the job. They had to win. I wasn't overly impressed with their win over Austin, though, to be honest. And I do feel that they're reliant on what is their great strength. They can sit in a block. They're playing 5 across the back effectively at the moment, and they've got 2 tremendous players, of course, who in transition can hurt any team. And that could get LA a long way, and it could get them past Vancouver. But if you ask me, if you look at the 1 to 11 of both teams and line them up right now, I would take Vancouver over LA. But it would be a close game.
What about the rest of the West? Are you anticipating, since we're here, are you anticipating fairly chalky behavior in the West as we go forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see Seattle beating Minnesota in game 2. I thought that was a pretty close. There wasn't much in that game.
Have you ever seen more posts and crossbars hit in a PK situation?
Well, that's a good question. Not too often. I've seen probably not as many times we've seen woodwork, but certainly missed. We've seen a few missed penalties. I'm doing the Charlotte-New York game tomorrow, and my word, Charlotte, was struggling to hit penalties last season. But no, I mean, I think that was a pretty close game. It was a pretty ugly game at times, that first Minnesota-Seattle game. I can see Seattle comfortably getting back into that series and winning in game 2 and then setting up a really good game 3. Portland-San Diego is interesting. Portland looked dead and buried on the final day of the regular season. They kind of fell into the wild card game, and then out of nothing, they produced a pretty good display to beat RSL. I didn't see the whole of the game down in San Diego, so I'm going off highlights, but obviously looked a closer game than the one on decision day. But San Diego go to Providence Park, having won there convincingly recently. And they will be confident, I think, of doing so again. So that'll be interesting to see how that one pans out as well. And LA, I think when they come up against Austin again, I think they have the advantage. I don't rule out that going to a game 3 and LA having to get it done at BMO, but I think they will come through that series.
Then now the actual reason that we have you here, now that we are in the second half with our catch up with Tony Husband, is Charlotte and NYC. No Zaha, and it definitely hurt. That is not me honking my horn, by the way. No Zaha, it hurt. How much did it hurt? I mean, it seemed like Charlotte could not get anything going offensively in this particular matchup, and it came down to a moment from a player from NYC who is really in rhythm right now, and they get the win on the road at the bank, and they're in control for game 2.
They are. With Zaha out, I think a lot of people wondered whether this could be the game of the first game series that could spring something of a surprise, where the team with the home advantage maybe could slip up. And so it absolutely proved to be the case. I mean, if Zaha had been available, I think most people would have backed Charlotte, one of the best home teams in this league, to continue that run and take game 1. But without him, they stunk for about half an hour, really. They didn't do much at all. And NYC took advantage of it. Tactically, they played it really well. I thought Pascal Janssen did a great job with the way he lined his team up. Justin Hack playing in a kind of back 4 and then evolving into a midfielder, adding an extra player into the middle of the park, outnumbering Charlotte in key areas. That helped. And there was just no spark, really, from Charlotte. And I was a bit surprised because Dean Smith said after the game, he felt that his team didn't really cope terribly well with kind of the pressure of it being, a home playoff game. And I mean, there's veteran experience right across that team. So I don't quite know how they could not cope with that. But clearly missing Zaha was a big issue. Abada, who came in, unfortunately looked woefully out of touch and out of form, like a player, I guess, who hasn't had that many minutes recently would be. So, they'll bring Zaha back. Whether they'll change much more, I'm not sure that they will. But you can't rule them out. And the key difference perhaps for this game is Wilfred Zaha fouled 125 times in the Major League Soccer season. And on a tight, confined field at Yankee Stadium, I just wonder whether one of those inevitable fouls he's going to get in and around the 18-yard box is going to lead to a set piece. And a set piece kind of moment could be the kind of thing that can get Charlotte back into this series.
I'll go ahead and I'll say I'll put air quotes up and go 18-yard box in air quotes. I'll go ahead and do it that way. I remember Peter Vermes measured it once, and he came up with the actual measurements. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but it was not what we traditionally have.
It's tight. Let's put it that way. Then.
Yes, it is tight. And when you look at Charlotte in this particular instance, how much of an absence is Pep Biel not being around?
Well, he's turned out to be massive. I mean, this is a player who I think, last year had a role, but was not. I don't think that he was quite as important as he's been this year. He was producing, let's not forget, if we go back to kind of, March, April time, people were talking about Biel's form and contribution as being at an MVP level in this league. He's been hampered twice now by injury this season. They definitely lose something when he's not there. He's got a beautiful touch, a beautiful way of threading midfield into attack. His goals and assist ratio was very good when he was fully fit. And it also meant that everybody looked at Charlotte and wasn't just saying, well, it's just Zaha. Now I feel like we are a little bit falling into the trap of looking at Charlotte and basically pinning everything on Zaha to be the difference maker. And I mean, he's had a good year, Wilfred, in amongst some, continual questions that he seems to have to answer about whether he looks grumpy and his attitude. And, there was the red card on the final day of the season, which, was an absolute, what a blow for them, for him to get that red card on that final day of the season, to then miss the first game. I mean, that could ultimately play a significant role in where their season's destiny ends. But, you don't want to pin too much on one player. But so the absence of Biel, for me, has been pretty big for them.
I found it. Peter, when he measured the turf up at Yankee Stadium, he said it was 68 by 106. So that was what Peter Vermes said when he actually walked it off that one time. So the Peter Vermes legend had it at 68 by 106.
Yeah. Maybe, we'll have to check Peter's pacings, because I'm sure they say it's got up to 70, don't they?
Yes, 70. Well, I mean, it's north of 65, so you round up and go 70. So it's like you go past halfway, you round up. When you are calling a match in a basically, as I phrased it one time, I said it's like fighter jets and a washer dryer. When you're calling a match that is almost like pinball, how much of a challenge is it to convey the message of what's going on, not get lost in all of the back and forth and the pinballs and the volleys and everything? How challenging is it in a space like Yankee Stadium to call a match at Yankee Stadium?
I think when any game, whether it's in Yankee Stadium or elsewhere, when a lot happens and as you say, a lot is pinballing back and forth, I think in my role as a commentator, I would always say, look, you're a television commentator, so people can see this. So you don't need to say every single person who's touching the ball, particularly if possession is constantly going back and forth and it's scrappy or whatever. Sometimes less is more, and the viewer can watch this. If you're doing it for the radio, it's probably more of a challenge. You're going to be churning out those minutes or words per minute, at a heck of a rate. But no, I think that would be always the attitude I would take towards it. You're there to comment and provide the extra words to add to what people are seeing. If it's all just crazy stuff, it's like whenever there's a melee in a game, I just tend to actually do what the referees do. I step to one side, let's just let it unravel. It'll soon calm down, and then we can talk about it. And I think John Freeman did much the same at Bank of America Stadium when it happened there. He was almost kind of smiling at the end when he was just waiting for everything to calm down. So I think that's the kind of view. But I would take that in any commentary, whether it be at Yankee Stadium or elsewhere.
All right, so quickly before you get out of here, let's take a peek at the other matchups in the East. Chicago and Philly. No Orahel for Chicago. We talked about that in hour number one. We had Max Anderson, their radio play-by-play guy, on yesterday. Nashville and Messi and Friends, that's going to go to Geodis, and then Hell is Real. What about those other three?
I think Columbus can take it to game 3 against Cincinnati. I think that's got the makings of an epic series. I think Columbus have got better recently, but they're clearly, you just think what this team could be if either Abu Ali perhaps had been fit, but you just think if Cucho was still there, what Columbus would look like right now if they had that clinical cutting edge. Because for me, that's really obviously what they're missing. They've got so many of the same parts that have done so well for them, but they just don't look as likely to score goals. That will be a problem, but I think they've got enough to get to a game 3. And then Nashville, Miami. Well, Miami have won 6 straight now against Nashville. So have Nashville got something left in the tank and something left to try and turn it around and take it to a game 3? I think it's going to be very tough for them. I think there's something now about Messi and this Miami group that is just a little bit more fixed than perhaps even they were last year on making sure that there's no mistakes in the playoffs this year. They're not going to repeat the the Atlanta experience. I would favor Miami to get through, although it's not out of the question that Nashville can beat them at home. Philly, Chicago, again, I think it has the makings of a game that could go to a game 3. But Greg Berhalter, has got some selection challenges as well. So I think, it's a really interesting weekend of games because there's an argument for saying several of these matches can be wrapped up in 2. But there's also, you can easily look at how important home field advantage is in this league. And I felt it would be, particularly in the East in these playoffs. And there's plenty of scope that we go into a completely wild match 3 weekend next weekend. And I think that's highly likely with a few of them.
And it's you and Ross, right?
It will be me and Ross, indeed.
All right. So if my math is correct, 342 kick. It's the 68 by 106. Is that accurate, sir?
That is absolutely spot on. 342, the first of I think it's 4 games we have tomorrow. So it's a great day to stick on your television and you can just roll from one piece of drama into the next.
And the multi-screen experience at 9:30 with Portland, San Diego, and Dallas and Vancouver.
That's right.
As always, my friend, it's great to talk to you. Great to see you. Can't wait to hear the call with you and Ross on the weekend for NYC and Charlotte. That you've where the key is under the mat. You know where the garage door opener is. You can crash at any time.
Thank you very much, John. And to return to the very beginning of our conversation, the apt way to finish it, I think, will have to be to say, play up Pompey.
Atta boy. That's the man right there. And we will keep an eye on that as well. The AGM, my all hands on deck meeting is coming up in 18 days. Be safe, my friend. Safe travels. We'll catch up with you soon.
Take care.
All right. Tony Husband from Apple TV. That's always fun. And literally when you sit there and it's like, okay, so what can I talk to Tony about outside of everything else? And then when I saw that he had done the documentary on Portsmouth and the sale, I'm like, ooh,